Oh, my goodness. What time is it? 6 minutes after 7 o'clock. Okay, so I told you about this crossover business, right? Well, there's all kinds of stuff that we're talking about. There's the good news and the bad news is not all things that make sense go, and not all things that are terrible get thrown out. There's always bills there, and you know what? This is a very critical time for you to pay attention to a bunch of things, and that's because your input's very important. Once these bills have crossed over, and it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the session, then you'll find out that your representatives and your senators and your city council folks and everybody gets very, very concerned about your thoughts on matters. And one of those joins us this morning. And we're so pleased because we've been witnessing her presentation of facts and figures for a long time about hemp. I'm not talking about marijuana. There's marijuana bills in the ledge this year. I'm talking about hemp, industrial hemp. And if you smoked it, you'd get sick, not high. Representative Cynthia Thielen, who has been a friend of agriculture and the environment for a long time, finally, I guess, has some reason to cheer. Good morning, Rep. Thielen. How are you?
Good morning, and I'm delighted to talk to you today about industrial hemp and House Bill 154. The wonderful thing, Mike, is House Bill 154 has now made it through its 3 committees on the House side. We'll go to the House floor for a full vote and then over to the Senate. And House Bill 154 sets up the industrial hemp phytoremediation project and has been amended to also include research on biofuels.
You know, I've seen, and most recently, some pictures of you actually where this is going on. And it seems to me, when you take a look at where hemp is being produced, and it's just a total no-brainer. Why has there been such resistance, and in years past, fierce resistance to this?
You know, it's an amazing thing to me. In the founding of our nation, farmers originally were able to pay taxes in hemp or in coin. So, and the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. That's why it's the Declaration is still lasting.
Well, one thing that I've felt, Rep. Thielen, is this, and we've done some research, of course, is I think modern technology has even produced more uses and more positive proof that this is a total no-brainer, particularly when it comes time for that it's renewable and it's a viable alternative to a lot of petrol products.
Do you know the exciting thing about it for Hawaii is that you can process hemp and lime, which is available locally, into building materials. And the building materials are termite impervious. Termites won't, they eat it and they die. So you have a superior building material that we could grow right in our agricultural land.
Well, in celebration of our chatting this morning, I told Raphael yesterday that I was going to wear my hemp shirt to work.
Good for you.
But I couldn't find it. I'm so frustrated. But this is, you know, I mean, I grew up in the clothing business, and back in the day, a lot of times, my late dad was approached by different people in different parts of the world with hemp products, and he said, "Oh no, we can't do that. It's not legal in Hawaii." And it wasn't back then. Even handbags and scarves and knapsacks and all of that stuff that was made from hemp.
And isn't that foolish? We're the only industrialized country in the world that prohibits farmers from growing industrial hemp.
What are the concerns?
Doesn't make sense.
Well, what are the concerns? I mean, I know that there's been staunch opposition, but now it seems such staunch support.
Well, do you want to know what's amazing? United States Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a Republican, has joined with some Democrat leaders and their co-sponsors of the Industrial Hemp Farming Act of 2013. This is one of the times the Democrats and the Republicans in Congress are getting along.
What a concept.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's going to benefit our farmers.
Well, I think that when you've cleared the way there, and, you know, we've talked before about this over the years, there are a lot of things, and right now there are a lot of things even in our legislature here in Hawaii that are very contentious, and they're party line stuff. But there's a tremendous number of things, and I hope that this legislation is one of them, that really are nonpartisan. They just need to get looked at. All right, what are the benefits? How do we do this? How do we allow this to happen? How do we control that people are doing the right thing? Aren't there examples, Cynthia, all over the world of successful growing of hemp and absolutely no introduction of anything narcotic or anything else about it?
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that's so amazing, hemp has been used to clean up the atomic wastes at Chernobyl. So you take a look at our ag land in Hawaii, and where we have had contaminants put onto the ag land, you plant the hemp, it's able to pull these toxins from the soil.
Gee whiz.
So, I mean, it's such an amazing crop, and there are 25,000 at least products and uses for the crop. It's an entrepreneurial's dream.
Does it take a large grower, or can somebody at a local level, say with a few acres in Kahuku, can they make a living growing hemp?
Absolutely, and it doesn't take a huge amount of acreage. But what it does do is it improves your soil when you plant it, and then you have your materials that the high end is the hemp seed. That's a high value. Mm-hmm. And if you go into Whole Foods and other health food stores, they sell hemp seed oil to ingest, and it's healthy. It's available right here. You now have hemp chips, the Dorito chip type of chips, with hemp seed in them.
There's
goodness. A myriad of products on our shelves that are legally there. Mm-hmm. The only thing, the farmers can't benefit by growing this worthwhile crop.
You know, I was looking at House Bill 154 that you mentioned, and we printed it all out. We needed to cut down a couple of trees in the Amazon this week because we're printing out so many interesting things. It looks like this is getting the traction and the bipartisan, nonpartisan support that it needs. Are there still stumbling blocks, and if so, why?
Well, the only stumbling block, I think, is due to maybe not knowing enough about the subject. And there, out of all the testimony that was submitted, there was only one negative piece, very positive from the professor and chair of the Department of Molecular Biosciences and Bioengineering at University of Hawaii, who wants to help out with this study for phytoremediation and biofuels. So scientists are saying yes. The only negative was from the police department of Honolulu, and I'm going to be meeting with those people in my office, I believe it's today, and to show them the different materials that are made from industrial hemp.
I think that people like myself, you convinced me a long time ago. I was totally against it. I'm thinking, all right, somebody's got a hemp farm, and the back of it they're growing wacky tobacco, and they're going to be able to get away with murder, and there's going to be all kinds of marijuana on the streets. And then research shows quite the opposite. As a matter of fact,
exactly.
Most of these places, aren't they pretty much contained, supervised, fenced, and all that stuff?
Well, the whole thing is, if you grow industrial hemp, the pollen will cross-pollinate with a marijuana plant, and it will lower the THC, or the stuff that gets high in the marijuana plant.
Well, some guys in the valleys of some of our neighbor islands are not going to like that idea very much.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you look at the opposition and you realize, whoops, that's because they're growing pot. But on this one, the only opposition came from the police department, and their statement was that the police department believes that there are other plants that could be used for phytoremediation. Well, last time I looked, the police department really isn't a specialist in agriculture. They had nothing backing that up. And so what if there is another plant that could be used?
Sure.
Hemp has been used to clean up atomic waste successfully. So why on earth are they opposing our cleaning up our agricultural land with this crop?
Sure. And let me ask you this. I mean, there's not that they're going to, I'm trying to draw a parallel because I'm purposely not. But there are other bills moving forward this year on decriminalizing possession, like of an ounce. You're looking at that. Fining rather, not jailing people. Do you think that people are loosening up a little bit about the other hemp to the point where they're
not this time, and that was encouraging, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing was that the HPD just had this really unsubstantiated little bit of negative testimony. Everyone else, the scientists, the people that really know about this subject, were all supportive. So, no, I don't see the crossover or the mixing up this time, because people have taken the time to learn about industrial hemp and realize what a valuable crop it is for our farmers.
Rep. Cynthia Thielen is on our Newsmaker line this morning. We will take your calls. Those of you that are ringing on the phone, we'll try to get to you in a minute.
AM 690 KHNR.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, KHNR.com, where you can stream us and screen us. Representative Cynthia Thielen on our Newsmaker line this morning. We're talking about her bill, House Bill number 154. It's a bill for an act to decriminalize, to legalize hemp. What we're talking about, this phytoremediation, I should say. It's the environmentally friendly science. And I think, and Rep. Thielen has been, I guess, best described as a bulldog on the subject, Cynthia. You've been in this for an awful long time. So
that's correct. Probably about 14 years.
Now, and I know that it's come close a couple of times in the past.
Right. We actually did have an industrial hemp research project, privately funded. It ran out in Wahiawa for about 4 years, and to determine what was the best variety for our area in the world. And that was a successful situation. Now we're moving ahead to say, okay, we know we have toxins in some of the agricultural land. We need to clean it up. And here's a plant that will pull all of the contaminants from the soil. So let's plant industrial hemp. And that's what House Bill 154 would do.
You know what's interesting about that is right now we're looking at other stuff. We're looking at bringing in moths to do this, and we're looking at, bringing in other introduced species, which we've made horrendous mistakes with in the past, but now seem to be learning a lot more. Here is a great question. Normally I don't take them off the air, but somebody wants to know, is it readily available so that a farmer would be able to get assistance and knowledge, and how fast can something be brought, to fruition? As a matter of fact, from when you plant hemp to when you can start harvesting. From what I understand, it's very quick.
That's a great question, Mike.
Because I understand that if you have the proper environment for it, that it's like it grows like a weed.
Oh, it does. It grows to maybe 15 feet high in height. Within about 3.5 to 4 months.
My goodness.
So you get at least 3 crops a year in Hawaii. So that's where we have the mainland states beaten. We can get much more out of our soil within the period of time. Farmers will be able to grow without any restrictions when the U.S. Congress, Senate, and House pass their Industrial Hemp Farming Acts of 2013. Mm-hmm. And as I said, this is the first time, really in a long time, that we have bipartisan legislation, that Republicans and Democrats are joining together, leaders in those parties. U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell in the Senate, yeah.
Well, and what about after that? I mean, let's say that we can have this agricultural bonus come along and benefit, and since we can have 4 growing cycles a year, what about the actual manufacture and all of that stuff? What other opportunities are there for us economically now that we can grow it to make something?
Right here in Hawaii, we would process it into building materials.
Wow.
So this means you don't have to import things. You can make what is called hempcrete. It's kind of like a cement, and you can form your walls out of the hempcrete. They're climate controlled. You probably won't need air conditioning, and termites will die if they try to eat it. So imagine
that's number one bonus right there, right?
Yeah.
Well, but other things too, because we've had a lot of people asking us, and I looked through some of the materials as far as other uses. I mean, biofuel. Everybody's worried about the environment. What about burning this stuff? I mean, what does that do?
Well, the biofuel, that's part of the research under House Bill 154, is to see how it will work for biofuels. The hemp is used in paper, clothing, industrial lubricants, cosmetics, lotions, food products. Go look at your shelves in your local markets. It's all over the place. high in protein and essential fatty acids, calcium, magnesium, potassium, vitamin A, beer. It's even made in, in beer.
And of course, we're all for that.
It's all legal. All legal. Everything is legal, with the exception our farmers can't grow it.
It seems to me, best case scenario, if this thing goes through the route that hopefully it will, that we can almost immediately seize the opportunity and become less sufficient, less dependent on some other things. If you're talking about building materials alone, I mean, that's worth the investment.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing. I've seen the buildings that have been constructed out of the hempcrete, and it's the most climate-controlled, wonderful environment. It's just amazing. You go into a normal bricks and mortar, then you go next door in England where they're building housing with hempcrete. And you go into the hempcrete home, and it's just incredibly nice.
Okay, well, since I got you for another couple of minutes, let me bend your ear on a couple of other things. I know you're extremely enthusiastic about this. What about some of the stuff that you're not enthusiastic about? I know that the crossover is on us, and that input from your constituents is important. What are some of the bills that look like they're moving forward are scary to you?
I'm concerned about the bill that is kind of using the PLDC approach for public school land, and I think people need to weigh in on what they think about that. Governor Abercrombie has come up with the idea that there's some valuable land where some schools are located, so he wants to be able to enter into a public-private partnership to have commercial development on part of that school land.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then that would bring in money to repair the school or possibly even replace the school.
Which makes it very tempting, right?
But, the thing that's so concerning is that maybe for today it could make sense, but once you take that school land and put a commercial building on it, you no longer have that school land available for school purposes. So I think people need to look at that and weigh in on what do they think. Is this a good concept, or should we say no, there are other ways to use to be able to redevelop our schools?
There's another dilemma, too, isn't there? And that is that we've had to suffer so many cutbacks in education because of spiraling costs and everything else, that music appreciation, that sports, that some of the extracurricular activities have gone away. Who knows that in better time that we might not only want to, but need to reinstall some of that stuff into the curriculum and then maybe not have space to do it.
And yes, and that's exactly my concern, Mike, is that we should really proceed very cautiously with this idea, because once you put a commercial structure on school land, it's there, and you're not going to be able to have that land for school purposes.
Yeah.
There's also a way that we could use there are laws on the books already. I promoted some of those, and then the Senate actually passed bills that became law a number of years ago that would allow the Department of Education to do what the military has done. Those public-private partnerships where housing is built for the military leases that housing, and at the end of a certain term, I think it's 30 years, they own the housing.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a way to do it.
Okay, now, before we have to say aloha, because I got a fixed break coming up here, let's talk more importantly, Cynthia, on how important it is for your constituents and others to communicate with your office of their feeling about these bills, because it's crunch time now, right? You're getting the bills,
absolutely.
It's crossover, and if you don't know what we're thinking, you don't know what we're thinking.
Absolutely, Mike, and that's why your show is so important, because you give information to the people, and the people can then get a hold of us at the Capitol and let us know what is their opinion of these different measures that are going through. I would ask that people look very carefully at that school bill and weigh in. And some may say, hey, great idea, do it, because you'll get a new school or a renovated school, and that there is excess land on certain campuses. Others may say, wait a minute, like you brought up, if we're able to eventually go back with those wonderful programs, the music programs, band, all the different things that we want to have children experience, will we have the school land available?
Yeah, that's a great point. Cynthia Thielen, Representative, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I love being on your show, Mike, and thank you. Go home and get a hemp shirt on now.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. And we will have Cynthia back as House Bill 154 that she is supporting it keeps on moving. We got more coming up on the program, including your opportunity to weigh in on this and other subjects. The Mike Buck Show at AOL.com is open for business, and right now it's 7:30.